welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving into a new series. Now, this one is called the Davis Twins series, and it's by a new author for this channel, Ann Omasta. We're going to dive into book one, Taking Chances. We meet Abby. She is having tacos and margaritas with her best friend Courtney. Now, this place gives off a Key West vibe. It's called like Joe's Shack or something like that. But they're in Harbor Shores, Michigan. They've got the best seats in the house. They can look right out on the water. Perfect. She's in the middle of telling her friend about this encounter she had with a guy, how he was touching her and kissing her. And right when he got between her legs, she goes, the alarm went off. Her friend Courtney was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I thought that was real. I was so invested. And so we find out what really happened. Abby had gone out on a blind date. Her boss, Annie, had told her, this guy, he's going to be, your dream guy, all this type of crap. But he was a total dud. He wanted to split everything down to actually not even down to the middle, because he wanted her to pay more for the appetizer because she ate more of the appetizer. So yeah, thankfully she went home and she had a sexy dream and it made the night better. So we find out Courtney, her thing is she does hookups. She doesn't do relationships too much. Abby's never seen her in one. Okay, now Abby tries, of course, not to judge. She's like, she's getting what she needs. Okay, so we find out Abby was married for a couple years, and she's now divorced, and she's also never had an orgasm. Like, never. Like, not even on her own accord. She's never had an orgasm. And so Courtney was like, she's given her a vibrator, but for whatever reason she doesn't use it, and it's because she really does think she's just incapable of having an orgasm, which is awful. That sounds like just an awful way to be. We get a little backdrop on our girl Abby. Now, she lives in a cottage. It's hers, but she lives there with Courtney. And what happened was Abby was married to a guy named Larry. She walked in on him getting a blowjob from the real estate agent. Her name's Trudy. So that marriage was done. It wasn't exactly a good marriage anyway. She wasn't really happy, but she was going to stay there. They lived in the city, and they were going to move into the suburbs because they wanted to start a family. And of course, that stopped all that. Not too long after this went down, she lost both of her parents in a car accident, and that left her completely devastated. They did leave her the cottage, which is where her and Courtney live, and a good amount of money where she really doesn't have to work, but she works because she likes to stay busy, and she's met some really wonderful people. So she has Annie, who owns the shop, and she sells like basically like souvenirs, knickknacks, things like that. And Annie was really there for her after her parents died, and so they really bonded. And then when Courtney came into town, it worked out because Courtney didn't have anywhere to go, and so those people are her family now. And so she basically works, and she puts the money that she earns from that into a trust, and that money's going to be for Annie and Courtney to help them in whatever dreams they would like to start. So she genuinely just seems like a really wonderful person. She appreciates the good that she has, and she just wants to pay it forward. Just a really beautiful human. Why can't everyone be this way? But anyway, she would like to have a man, okay, but they just seem as if they're more trouble than what they're worth. So she left a nice little sweet note for Courtney. She likes to leave notes around the house, not just for herself, but also for Courtney. Just very encouraging things. And she goes to work because she can walk there. And she tells Annie, yeah, it's a no go. Annie really thought that was going to be her soulmate, which is insane. But Annie says, there's plenty of sardines in the can. I've never heard that. I've always heard there's plenty of fish in the sea. But listen, plenty of sardines in a can works too. Annie's very quirky. She has her own sayings, and they make sense to her, and that's all that matters. So Abby goes back home, and there's a note on the glass mirror that's from Courtney that says, "Say hi to a cute guy today." So they like to leave notes for each other, and I think it's super cute and it's sweet. So she decides she's gonna go for a jog. Courtney had taken a stray dog. They call him Buster. He's a good dog. And so she took the dog with her. She goes out. She's having a good time because the dog slows down when she needs him to. And it seems like, she's always rushing, but it's like, what are you rushing towards? You know what I mean? So then another dog comes at them with the frisbee in its mouth, and it's a beautiful dog, and then there's a beautiful man that's coming towards the dog. And at first, she didn't get the high out. It took her a minute, and the guy called out for the dog's name, which is Buddy, and eventually she was able to say hi to the guy. So the guy says hi. He's like, "I'm Seth Davis," and she's like, "I'm Abigail Brown." And then Buster just sat down, and she's like, "Okay, Buster, let's go." Buster just sat there, like, nope. So Seth is like, "Oh, looks like he doesn't want to leave." She's like, "Yeah, I see that." So then they're about to go, and then Buster finally stands up so they can leave. And then the Seth guy asks her to go to the bakery they also serve doggy treats as well. So she agrees and they go. He goes and gives some tea, and it takes him a while, and immediately her mind thinks, "Oh my gosh, he probably ran off, probably come back, get his dog later." All these different thoughts are running through her mind. And then eventually he comes back. The dogs are crisscrossing each other, which unfortunately makes her fall when she's trying to make him stop, and she falls right into Seth's chest. Thankfully, he didn't waste their teas or any of the dog's treats, and she was kind of done for. He was, beautiful, felt great. So she's an open book, and she starts yapping and she's talking. And she told him, that she was divorced, that she lives with her best friend Courtney. Told him about her job, and he's only told her his name is Seth Davis, right? That's it. And eventually, he was able to get in some things and say what he does. He says he's a boat maker. And I'm like, that's something different, because you don't hear that all the time. And he tells her he'd like to do this again. And so she agrees, and she leaves and goes home, and she is on cloud nine. So Abby comes back home. Courtney's there. She tells Courtney everything that happened. Courtney was just like, make sure you meet him in a public place, you know, very much about being safe. Yes, you wanted her to step outside her comfort zone, but just because you step outside your comfort zone doesn't mean you have to lose all common sense either. Just saying. So what she's going to do is they're going to have their date at Joe's place so that way Courtney can kind of scope him out. And it's, she feels safe there. So then we get a memory from her, and she's thinking about when she was married to her ex, Larry, and how, you know, women normally, I guess, I assume, and that's probably bad, to assume, but women can have been known to fake it, right? And she never did. So every time they had sex, her and her ex, he knew he was not making her come. And one time they were all hot and heavy for each other and they were going at it, and he was just kind of like, you know, because they had done it in different, mix it up, and it's like nothing ever worked. And he had told her, he's like, "Gosh," he's like, "you could at least fake it, at least, you know." But for her, I guess it just, he's in there pounding into her, and it's just like she's not feeling it. So I don't know if he was bad at sex. I don't know. I don't know. But of course, that would make her feel like him with her. Like, no, there's something wrong with me because that's not normal. But again, we don't know if something's wrong with her or if it's just a matter of dude just sucked in bed. Because that's a possibility too. She asked Courtney all these different questions, like when am I going to be expected to put out? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Larry was like her high school dude, so she doesn't have a lot of experience. So of course, Courtney's like, you do what makes you feel comfortable, you know, that's it. And then she proceeds to help her find a nice outfit. So she's excited all week, and she writes little confidence boosters every day trying to help herself. I deserve to have this good time. I deserve something good in my life. And so Courtney helps her get ready for the date. She's going to dinner at the Joe Shack place. Courtney had said, she's not going to be their server, but she'll be there. And again, I think it just helps a safer feel because this is her first time kind of being on a date with this guy. She doesn't know this man. You know what I mean? So Courtney is around. Courtney comes up. She does look at him like hubba hubba, like he's fine. They eat, they have a good time, good conversation. And then Seth notices the googly eyes going back and forth between Courtney and Joe. And Abby is kind of looking, and he says something about it. And she's like, I never really thought about it, but yeah, that is what's happening between them, you know? But Courtney, again, had always been the love him and leave him type, so she just does the hookups. But she, never really even thought about that, her being with Joe, the owner. So he's not a bad looking guy. He's like a surfer looking dude. So who knows? Maybe there's something on the horizon there. So as she's looking, Seth kind of says, "Well, damn, are you just gonna stare at another man while I'm here? You're gonna give me a superiority complex?" And she's like, "Well, I guess you better fight to get my attention." And he says, "Well, let's get out of here. Let's go for a walk by the water." And so as they're leaving, Courtney yells out, "Have fun." They go on the walk along the harbor. It's really nice. But then they run into her ex, Larry, and he is with Trudy. And he yells out to Abby his old nickname for her, which I think is awful. But he calls her Abracadabra. And Seth introduces himself, and Larry introduces himself as her husband. And Abby and Trudy both yell out at the same time, ex-husband. So then Larry says, "Oh, I see you're working your spell on a new guy." And I mean, I get why he says that. Abracadabra, you're working. Okay, I get it. But still, it's just not cute. I don't know. It's just not. So then he starts rubbing on Trudy's protruding belly and says that, they're expecting a Larry Jr. Abby's in shock because apparently her and Larry had been trying to conceive their whole marriage and she never got pregnant. She thought Larry was the problem, but now it clearly feels like she was the issue. Because like he didn't even want to go take a test to figure out if it was him. So she takes Seth's arm and walks away from them. And when they get to a safe distance, Seth asks her, like, do you still have feelings for your ex? And she says no. But she tells him about the baby situation and then asks for him to take her to his place. So they go to his place, which is an Airstream. And it's on this big piece of land. And his dog, Buddy, runs up. And after looking out, she sees how really nice the land is. And he explains that he wants to build a home on the land, but he wants to build it with the woman of his dreams. And in her mind, she's thinking like, okay, I really hope I can be that woman. And then she wants to go inside of the Airstream. And Seth kind of tells her, because, she wants to get down. And Seth was like, he hadn't expected that. He didn't have any condoms. And so she tells him, she's clean. She got tested after she found Larry cheating on her, and she hasn't been with anyone. And he tells her he always uses condoms. And then she said she clearly can't get pregnant because her and Larry tried their whole marriage, and clearly he can procreate and she can't. So she lunges at him, and the kisses are just so intense. He starts sucking on her titties, rubbing her clit, and the pleasure is so much that eventually she orgasms. It's her first of her life. So now her mind is like, oh, my lady parts aren't broken. He plunges into her. They have a nice hard fuck. So then afterwards, about the no orgasm thing, and he was like, oh, well, then we got some catching up to do. Sends a text to Courtney to let her know she isn't coming home tonight, and then she makes up her mind. She's going to wake him up in the morning with a blowjob. Next morning, she wakes up to him cooking breakfast, and then they went outside to eat the breakfast, and they wound up having a nice hard fuck. Then they fucked again in the shower. Then he took her home, and on the way there, she started wondering if he would be done with her. But when she got out, he asked her, like, when can I see you again? And she told him, text me. She goes in the house. When she sees Courtney, um, she had a run in with the cat Tabitha. The cat does not like Abby for some reason. Courtney says it's because she doesn't like the cat, so the cat knows that and doesn't like her. However, Courtney automatically tells she'd had an orgasm because she was so happy. She's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I told you that there was nothing wrong with your lady parts. So then she goes to work. Annie notices her aura as well. She goes to the park for lunch, and keep in mind, she's been checking her phone nonstop, waiting for some type of communication from Seth. Eventually, she gets a call from Seth, and he asked her to a charity gala event. And he told her, his whole family would be there. And so she's like, now she's got to find a gown. So our girl is wearing a long black gown. It accentuates her large breasts. She was told to meet Seth at the event. Now, she would have preferred for him to come and pick her up because she doesn't like walking into places by herself. But she goes in and she sees Seth. He's talking with an older guy. She goes to the table, she does drop something and reaches for it so that way she's bending over and you can really see her boobs. And Seth's eyes are like glued to her. And so she walks away. And no, I'm sorry. Seth walks away from the older guy and she goes to the restroom, and she looks at herself in the mirror, and she has to admit she does look pretty damn sexy. So she hears a knock and someone say, it's me, and she opens the door, and her and Seth start kissing and they start grabbing on each other. Him, he grabbing on her titties and shit like that. And then she says, oh, Seth, and he goes still. And he walks out and says, I'm his identical brother, Sam. Dum, dum, dum. So she stays in the restroom to get herself together. And when she comes out, Seth has arrived and he's with his sister, Jessie, who we find out he's been talking about her to. And she wants to tell him about what happened in the restroom, but she chickens out and just tells him that, she met his twin, but wanted to know why he didn't tell him tell her that he had an identical twin. And he said he thought he had done that. They dance a few songs, and then Sam says, can I cut in? Dance. Well, keep in mind, he's been hanging around a bunch of chicks the whole night while they were dancing. And apparently this is his normal. Like, he does not keep the same kind of chick. He's the opposite of his brother. So when they're dancing, he says, like, did you tell Seth? And she didn't say anything. She's like, no, I didn't. And he also says to her, normally we don't have the same kind of taste in women, but thankfully this time we did. So she was like, oh no. She storms away from him to get a drink. She talks to their sister Jess, who she's already had a few drinks. And she tells her they're both sweet, but, Sam just doesn't do serious. He's always got different women. And the women are always trying to get him to settle down, but it just never works. So then she tells her, don't break Seth's heart. Abby says, I won't. Seth comes over and Abby asks if they have to stay, and he says, "Nope, I've been waiting to get you out of that dress." And as they leave out, she can feel Sam's eyes on her. They rush to their cars and go back to her place, and right when they get inside, they have a nice heart fuck right inside of the front door. She's hoping that, you know, her what happened with Sam, it was just because they look identical, right? But she does feel some type of way when he looks at her. When Sam looks at her, she feels it. So afterwards, they go in the kitchen and they eat crackers because they didn't stay for the food, so they were starving. And Seth opens up about his family. He says his mother started the Cancer Foundation, which is what the gala was for, after she lost her parents to cancer. She had been really depressed and then one day decided she was going to do something about it. He then speaks of Sam and talks how Sam saved his life back in college. They were partying on a boat and the waves were starting to pick up, and um, he dove into the water to do something and didn't realize how shallow the water was, and he knocked himself out, and Sam didn't see him come up fast enough and he went in and got him, but um he got slammed against the boat afterwards and he now has a scar on his shoulder. So in Abby's mind, that doesn't make him a hero because that's how Seth talks about Sam, like, I do consider him my hero. But in Abby's mind, it's like, no, I would think anyone would do that to save a family member, you know? So then Seth asks to see her bedroom. They go upstairs to have fun, and she didn't think of Sam again. I forgot to mention, he had also told her he wanted her to meet his niece, Katie, who is Jesse's daughter. And it seems she's a single parent. He didn't mention anything about their own father, and she noticed that, but she didn't press. Next morning, she wakes to an empty bed, and now that, she's had this experience with Seth, it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, this feels really real to her. And he had left a note that just had an S with a heart around it. And he clearly had saw her encouraging notes and he wasn't judging her, and she was happy about that. So she goes in to speak with Courtney, who's like, you look like, you've been well fucked. And they start talking about Courtney, and Courtney's gone like a week without Dick, and so Abby brings up Joe, and Courtney's eyes go soft, and she tells her Joe deserves someone better than me, and she talks about her white trash issues, and Abby, of course, is like, that is not who you are. Courtney is like, you love me, so of course you don't see me that way. I do feel bad for Courtney because that makes me wonder what went on with her past. Because remember, she said she came to the city, came to this place with nothing. So what did she leave from? I don't know if we're gonna find out on this book, but that makes me sad because she seems like a really wonderful friend. So not too long after he left, he called Abby, Seth did, and asked her to brunch with his family. His family, they have a family brunch, and she agreed to come. And he's like, I'll pick you up in an hour. And she's like, cool. What do I wear? So Court had this dress that doesn't look like anything Courtney would wear. And she had the matching strappy heels. And now Court doesn't have the same amount of boobage as Abby. So she kind of had to push him in there. But they made her boobs look great. And so, they got to go somewhere. So they popped up. So she comes out. Courtney says, you look hot. They go outside. They're waiting on the porch. And sure enough, Seth comes up, sees her. He looks goo goo gaga at her. And he's like, you look fantastic. She does that bending over like she's picking something up thing. And he's about to lose it. So then they jump in the Jeep and they leave. They pull up to this huge home. And there's like this elephant that sprays water at you, and it's like very whimsical the way it looks, and it makes her think of Annie, and she thinks, you know, his mom and Annie should meet. And he's like, I don't think they're the same. So when they open up the back gate to the backyard, there's just like this makeshift kitchen, beautiful pool, just beautiful. And so she could feel Sam before she even saw him. Now she's chalking it up to the fact that, they look so much alike, but at the same time, she cannot deny the fact that this man, Sam, there's a physical reaction to him. She likes Seth, but there is a physical reaction to Sam. And so, I mean, here's the thing, her hair doesn't stand up when Seth comes around. It does when Sam does. So, this is a mess. He introduces her to his mom. Katie, his little niece, comes up, and she of course looks at Abby and is like, who is this? Because Seth doesn't bring anybody around. So she's like, who is this person? Now Sam, they're used to, because Sam brings different people different times. So Sam's got a date as well. She's a stunning woman, long legs, tan, lean body, and she's an elitist. She's a whole bitch. She's calling, calling people servants, just a whole mess. So Katie's like, Uncle Seth, take me on the swings. He does it. And that's the time Sam chooses to come up to her, and he says, alone at last. And he says, did you tell Seth about what happened? She says, no, I didn't think it was important. And he says, or maybe you thought it was. It was too important. So then she didn't say anything else. Seth comes up, tells her, hey, gorgeous girl, kisses her. And then Jenny with an I, because all his girlfriends have the last initial of an I. Candy, those type of names. So she comes up, and everyone's gawking at her because she is stunning. She does feel this tinge of jealousy, and she thinks it's because the woman is just so gorgeous, right? But no, clearly it's because this girl is with Sam. So when Jenny with an I walks up, she says, I've never had twins before, but I have enough holes to accommodate both of you. And they all look at her like, what the fuck? Like, wow. So she says that, she walks off, and Seth was like, oh, he's going to probably dump her soon, because Sam made a face like he was pissed. And I was just like, oh gosh, what a bold bitch. That's bold. So they're having brunch at the table. They're telling stories about Seth and Sam, and it's like these one-upping each other stories. They start talking about the days of old, and then they start kind of going in on each other a little bit. And the dad, so I guess he does exist, he was like, cut it out. And that's when Seth was like, no, he really is my hero, And when he says it, she sees this dark look on Sam's face. So after dinner, she took a little tour, walking around, looking at pictures. And Sam, of course, found her. She was looking at a picture of the twins when they were toddlers. And he's like, I bet you can't tell which one of us is who. And she says, you're on the left. He's like, how did you figure that out? And she says, because your smile is kind of crooked, whereas Seth has a perfect straight smile. So then Sam was like, of course you would find a flaw with me and think Seth is perfect. She said, I didn't mean it in a bad way. She said, some people might find a crooked smile sexy. He says, do you? She wouldn't answer. She has a visceral reaction to this man. She's already wet. It's a whole thing. So he said, they used to trick people a lot throughout school. Their nannies, hell, even sometimes family members couldn't tell them apart. And he got so close to her. It was just this really intense feeling, and then he just walked away. So she went and found Seth, and in her head, it's like, you know what? It's just that he looks like Seth. But Seth is the one that she cares about. You know, he's the good person. He's the good guy. And so she went and so when she found him, they went and took a walk and they were looking out on the lake and she could feel Sam watching them. She never looked to confirm it, but again, she can always feel when he's looking at her. So they leave, and she wants to see like his boats. Remember, he's a boat maker. And so he goes and shows her. It's on the property near where his airstream is. And these are huge, gorgeous boats that he makes. We find out there's like a 2 year waiting period to get one of his boats. So, like, he's the real deal. She wants to break in one of the boats. He's thinking she's talking about putting it in water. Oh, no. Girl wants to get down in the boat. So she takes off her dress. They have this nice hard fuck, and they're just laying there on the boat. And afterwards, she just felt so complete. And so she just felt everything. And she tells him she loves him. He freezes. He stays that way for a minute. And then he says, we should get you back. You don't want to miss your girls' night. She gets dressed. They drive back in silence. And when she's ready to get out of the car, he says, take care. And he leaves. She's crying, but he's not going to hear it because he's already gone. Now, you say take care. That sounds like a goodbye. That's what I read. That's how that to me would come across. That's goodbye. Because why would you say just take care, no kiss, no nothing, y'all just fucked. And this is what you do? Wild. So she goes to her girls' night and she's like, I'm so stupid. Why did I say that? Court tells her, listen, if that scared him away, he's just not the right one. That's all. So then she starts talking about her and Joe, and Courtney goes, did he put you up to this? I told him it's not going to work. And she starts crying and she leaves the table. So when she comes back, Abby tells her, listen, I want you to be happy. That's it. Whatever that looks like, that's what I want for you. You know, I didn't talk to Joe. I had no idea you all had a conversation, but just know that I want you to be happy and that's all I care about. So clearly, these are in regards to, court's issues, things that clearly happened in her past. She still hasn't told Abby everything. Abby says maybe you should go to a shrink. She says, been there, done that, didn't help. She was like, I'll work it out in my own way, in my own time. So then Abby says, you know, as long as if you need to talk to me, just know that I'm here, you know? So they hugged it out, and then Joe comes up and says, now kiss. Now that will make it really hot. And Court throws a napkin at him, and Abby is just like, men. All right, now remember, girls' night, the brunch, all of that happened on Sunday, okay? We fast forward to Thursday. She still has not heard a peep from Seth. I'm not shocked because he said take care. And to me, that sounds like goodbye. She, of course, is in a mood. She's sad. And she's like, he got tired of her. So she's like, she wants to text him. She wants to say something. But then she changes her mind. And he takes her phone and was like, sends a text that says, hey, I'm off tomorrow. Want to go on a picnic. And Abby says, I'm not off tomorrow. She's like, yes, you are. I'm giving you the day off because I cannot take you moping around here anymore. And so she's like, do what you need to do for the rest of the day. Do a spa day. Do something. But get yourself together. So she leaves, but she's miserable. He never responds. She's basically in a funk for Saturday as well. She slept all through Thursday. She slept all through Friday. Saturday, she didn't want to go to work. She called in. She slept. And she tells Court, I'll be good by Monday. Because Court was concerned. This is not her normal behavior, right? But she was like, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. So, probably Saturday afternoon or something, she decides, I'm hungry. I'm going to go make me something to eat. No, maybe it was Sunday morning she felt that way. She was like, she's going to make her something to eat and try and get over Seth Davis. She has now turned her sadness into anger. So she's at Joe's. They're having their girls' night, Sunday night get together. And she's like, you know what? He could have at least given me some closure, That's what's so shitty. But this is my thing. Sometimes you have to take closure for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes people will hold it hostage from you. They know that that's something you want or feel you need, and they'll hold it from you. So you kind of have to come to terms with things for yourself. And that's what it feels like she needs to do in this situation, And to me, him saying take care was him saying goodbye. He didn't have the balls to say goodbye, but he was saying goodbye. That was clearly his reaction, but hey, I don't know. Well, after they have the rest of their girls' night, she had decided, she was going to call him and say what she needed to get off of her chest and let it go at that point, And Courtney, of course, is mad as well. That's her best friend, so she thinks this is all fucked up. She's pissed off. And so after their dinner, our girl Abby's gonna go on a little walk by the water, and she's like, I just want to get my mind clear before I call him, because Courtney was concerned. She's like, I promise you, I am okay. She calls, it goes to voicemail, and she leaves him a voicemail basically saying that, you could have told me you didn't want to see me anymore, X, Y, and Z. She did not say anything about being friends or anything like that. It was more so just, you could have let me know you didn't want to rock with me anymore, right? And I think she did well. So then she kept walking, and she sees this huge home on a cliff, because she went really far down. She just kept walking, clear her mind, and there's a house on a cliff. She never noticed it before because she normally doesn't go this far down. And the waves started hitting pretty heavy, and she was sitting on a rock, and it winds up knocking her ass over. She hurts her ankle. She had to pull herself up, and she's kind of pulling herself in the sand, and she didn't have the strength to keep doing it. Her phone got wet. It's a whole fucking thing. Then she sees this big black shadow coming. She's like, oh God, something's coming to get me. It was a dog, and it was friendly. And then there's a person with a collar that comes behind him. And she figures, oh gosh, hopefully it's not a threat. And she looks up, and she goes, Seth? And the person goes, no. So yes, it's Sam. And he was like, you could have killed yourself. Why are you out here? It went off on her. And she yelled back at him, sorry, didn't mean to hurt my ankle, So he was going to call Seth, and she said, no, call Courtney. And he was going to help her, but she was saying, I'll just wait. It was wild, okay? He walked off. She had to call his ass back because she didn't want to be stuck out there. And so eventually he's like, fuck this. He just winds up picking her up, putting her over his shoulder, and taking her up to the house on the cliff, which is his. And as she looks at it, there's this porch, and she's like, wow, this would be really nice to come out and read over this water. This would be really nice. So he takes her in the bathroom, runs her a bubble bath. He's like, do you need any help? She said, no, I can manage. He's got the big dog, and the dog's name is Miss Dixie. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's what you picked for that big dog's name. And he was like, he's gonna have to get even with her later for picking at his dog name. And then she, of course, thanked him. She was thankful for the bath. He comes in later and he brings her some fresh clothes, well, dry clothes, since hers are soaking wet. And she had yelled her friend's phone number off to him while they were on the beach, and he apparently remembered it because he called her and he told her, um, hey, I've already called your friend and let her know you're going to just stay here tonight. And she's like, I can't, you know? And he's like, well, you don't have a choice. The storm's coming, and it's already pretty difficult to drive on that road that leads to out of where he lives. So with the rain and everything, that it's just not possible. And then right then, there's lightning and thundering that happens, and she realizes, yes, she's stuck. And he says, don't worry, you're my brother's girlfriend. I won't touch you, even though I want you. And that of course made her feel all tingly, because it was like, oh my god, he's feeling this same thing too. But she is going to do her best to stay as far away from him as she can. So Sam comes in. She's like, she's gonna get out the, because the water's not warm anymore. He reaches in the tub, pulls a plug, and then pours the tap, uh, turns the tap on for the hot water, so she doesn't have to get out. And then he takes her foot and makes circles on her ankle, and it feels really good. And we get some confessions. So she had brought up again about how he had saved Seth's life, and we find out why she saw that dark look at the table when they were having that family brunch that previous week. So he hesitated before he jumped in to save his brother, because Seth is better at everything and he doesn't even try. And it's very frustrating to Sam, right? Seth is the older one by how many ever seconds or minutes. And so Sam is always trying to measure up to his brother. She, of course, is like, it doesn't matter that you hesitated. He said, yeah, but it is, because for a moment, I thought how easy my life could be if I didn't have to try and compete. So then he had told her that Seth was at the brunch today without her, and he was, he's fishing. He's trying to find out what's going on. And she says, well, I guess we're taking a break or whatever. He told her that, basically he hasn't been able to stop thinking about her since that, session in the restroom where they almost fucked. And, you know, he doesn't even like kissing girls. He doesn't do it because he doesn't want them to think that they have a shot. So it just makes it seem like maybe he really did feel something crazy for her. So she said to him, what happened? He said to her, before we fuck, I want to know if it's really over between you and Seth. And she doesn't answer right away. He tells her, I'm waiting for an answer. And she says, like, I think we're pretty much done, but I still can't mess with you because, like, that's wrong and it's creepy. He said, why would it be creepy? I don't think it'll be creepy. Not the way you felt when not how it felt when I kissed you in the bathroom. I know our sex life will be amazing. And she was like, why is he saying our sex life? This is so insane. So eventually it's time for her to get out of the bath. He held up the towel and she's like, no, he left the towel for her to do it herself. And she gets ready. He gave her like these black shirt and sweatpants. It smells like him. She's almost tempted to try and keep them as a souvenir for herself. She goes out on the couch. He elevates her foot, and he puts on this romantic comedy for her. And she's just slowly and surely about to fall asleep. And I think seeing this nice, softer side to him, it's getting to her because, right, this is a complete contrast of what she's heard and what she, knows about him. He's a womanizer, doesn't really care about women. They're a plaything, right? And here he is being so loving and caring towards her. This is different. Sam falls asleep. So does the dog. She's awake. TV's on, but it's watching her. She is so sexually charged. He's got his leg over her leg, but it's close to her cooch. and she wants to rub up against his leg. At this point, if she does, she'll come. He wakes up and he says, "Are you trying to use my body?" And she automatically says, "Absolutely not." And then he looks at her and he pins her down and he tells her, "I have wanted you since I saw you. Tell me if you want me to satisfy your scratch." So eventually, at first she was like thinking in her head, this is inevitable. She's wanted him. It's just, it is what it is. So she looks him straight in the eyes and she says yes. He, of course, is like, "Are you sure?" And she says yes. And then they go ripping off each other's clothes and they fuck right there on the couch. It's the best she's ever had. She thought about sex. Hold on. She's had sex. She didn't think about sex with Seth. She's had sex with him. It was phenomenal. But this was something different. So afterwards, it's like the mood kind of went cool, cold. And he made a comment that pissed her off. And he said, "Normally I wouldn't want my brother's leftovers, but this time it worked out." She, of course, got so offended. And I mean, I'm not shocked that he said it, right? Because it's like, that is what's happening. And it's like, you were fucking with his twin brother. Like, and but at the same time, on his part, why are you saying it? Because you know. So, I don't know. So, he was still inside of her. Now, keep in mind, he didn't take his dick out, okay? He started moving in and out of her. It became too much because she started to feel crazy. Like, he just made this comment. It made her feel bad. And now it's like her body's betraying her. She wants him again. And so all she can do is cry. Well, then it feels really bad. Because at first it didn't seem like there was any sympathy, but then it came out. He was like, Abby, he's like, Ab, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't cry. Please don't cry. He's like, "I don't know why I do that. I don't know why I push people away before they, that I care about." He's like, "I didn't mean it. I don't see you that way." So he promised to never say anything like that again. She's like, "You can't do that to me. You can't say that type of stuff to me." And he's like, I promise, I'll never do it again." So eventually she forgives him. And then she told him, "Me on top." So then he flipped her and had her on top. And they fucked. Because the first time when they were doing it, I didn't mention it. He just had his dick in her and she came. There was no movement. He just had his dick in her. That was it. So this time it's real fucking going on. So he stuck his finger in her ass, and at first she was like, "No," and then he's like, "Just relax. It'll feel good." It felt fantastic to her. They both came and then fell asleep. She woke up. She was still on top of him. He was still inside of her. So she starts moving. He's like, "You're already wet." She's like, "You're already hard." They wind up fucking. So he's going in and out of her. He's saying, like, "What do we call this? What is this? It's more than sex. It's more than hooking up." Because she was trying to keep it casual, saying it was sex. And he's like, "This is making love to you. I'm making love to you, Abby." Or Ab, because he calls her Ab. And what did he say to her? I don't remember. But I'm just like, this is gonna be a whole mess. He ate her pussy too, made her come. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a mess. She's on cloud nine, but it's like, something's gotta crash. So then he's gonna take her home the next morning, and he drives like a small Porsche car. She's sitting there, she's watching him, she's getting all turned on, just being near him, just looking at him turns her on. So she's looking at his crotch. She winds up pulling it out because he was going commando. So she was too. So she starts sucking him, and he's like, "Let me pull over before you get us killed." So then he finds a grocery store parking lot, and he parks way in the back, and he comes around because the car again is small. So he comes around, gets right underneath, gets on her side, tells her to sit on him, and then they have this nice hard fuck. they both come. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I got to give my dick a break with you." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know if how I'm going to be able to walk at work." And he's like, "I'm going to be thinking about you all day." And then she finally asks him, "What do you do for a living?" And he says he went to school for architecture, but he does business acquisitions. He's going to take over the family business. So in her mind, she's wondering, like, wait a minute, normally the oldest son does that, but Seth is a boat guy, so I guess it fell on Sam. But he doesn't say anything else about it. She doesn't say anything else as well. So he's just driving to her home. Keep in mind, she hasn't told him where she lives. But I'm like, this dude, I think, has been obsessed with her since he saw her. So he probably was like, I need to know everything about her. So I am not shocked that he knows how to get to her house. I'm just not. Um, they pull up and he says, "What the hell is Seth's Jeep doing in your yard?" And she looks at him because she's like, "Oh my God, what the hell is happening?" Abby starts stammering, like, I don't know why. And he says, "I guess you two aren't as finished as you said." Very accusatory. And she said she had no response because this again is not what she expected. And Sam was like, "Well, we knew we'd have to face him at some point." And he said something about, just, when you get a phone, make sure you call me. Well, he said, just make sure you call me later and let me know, how it goes. So in her head, she's like, oh, shoot. She didn't think that Sam would want something real with her. She thought she's going to be able to they'll just have fun because that's the most that he's capable of. But the way he's talking, this is very different. Because she was thinking even if she saw Seth, she'd never have to tell him because it's not going to be anything serious because it can't be with Sam. Now the shit gets real and she is chastising herself. Why didn't you wait? Why didn't you give it more time? You know, ugh. So before, she gets out, he kisses her, and now she knows she's got to go in. She's got to have this conversation. So she goes inside. The cat Tabitha that hates her actually is sitting on Seth's lap. How crazy is that? He's in the kitchen with Courtney. Courtney says, "Oh, you're back from Annie's." Clearly trying to cover for her. She's like, "Well, I'm gonna go run." Courtney doesn't exercise, but she's thankful because she's giving them time to talk. So this is what happened. Seth said that he needed time to process what she said because he just doesn't run around telling people he loves them. So he finished the boat, took it out on a voyage, came back Sunday night, had brunch with the family, watched his niece Katie because Jess had to talk with the father about some things, Katie's father. And so he didn't get her message until late, and he's been blowing up her phone since. She feels horrible because he's saying this to her. He says, "I love you too." He's like, I needed time to process. He says, "I know I didn't do it right, you know." And she was just like, "Why didn't you say that? Why didn't you say I need time to process?" You know? And he apologized. He says, "I know I didn't handle it right, X, Y, and Z." And so she decided to tell him the truth. So in a soft voice, she says, "I slept with Sam." And he looked as if he'd been physically punched. And he's like, "I'm going to kill him." And he leaves. So she stands there and she is contemplating the fact that she just hopes the brothers' relationship will survive because she knows she's lost both of them forever. She's going to be a little late to work. She calls Annie and it's like, "It's perfectly fine. I'm just glad you're okay." She calls Courtney. She's like, "Meet me at the shop in like 30 minutes. Court says, "Of course." And this is why she loves these women. They're there for her. It's unconditional love. So when she gets there, of course, she's like, "Did you tell Seth about Sam?" And she just starts crying. And she's like, "I've messed up. I've messed up. I'm not going to have either one of them because I gave in to what my body wanted. And I didn't think about the repercussions." So both Annie and Court are like, "No, I don't think it's going to work out the way you're thinking. I think you're going to have to make a choice. She's like, no, there's no way they're going to want to be with me after this. She's like, I slept with both of them. And they are telling her, listen, don't feel bad when it comes to Seth, because based on what Seth did, he shouldn't have ignored you. He shouldn't have done that to you. You thought you all were done. You didn't lie to Sam. You know, Seth should have picked up the phone and told you, listen, I just need time to process. And that way you would have known. And then you wouldn't have done what you did. But you thought it was over when it came to Seth. And you gave in to Sam. But it's not going to be cut and dry like you think. They're going to want you. So you need to figure out when they come back, who are you going to choose? So while they're having this discussion, the guy, Mr. Finley, comes in. He owns a little sweet treats place. And he's just smiling at Annie. Annie's smiling at him. And this is the first time she's noticing this. Like, oh, this looks like they might have a thing, you know? So they start ragging on Annie about it. And she calls him Harry, his first name, which they didn't even know. And there's clearly something there with them. And then Court blurts out, Joe kissed me last night and it rocked my world. She goes home. She's in the bathtub taking a bath, and there's a knock on the door, and it's Court. And she's like, hey, I gotta go take over for Gracie. She called in sick. And she's like, you also have a visitor. So behind her, she sees Seth. So she's just like, just have him come in. So she's assuming Seth is coming over to tell her, it's really over. He can't forgive her, blah. Well, Seth has a busted lip, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for causing pain. And he says, you should take a look at the other guy. And then her face crumples because it's like the fact that Sam is hurt clearly bothers her, which means she cares about him too. And she does see the hurt on Seth's face. And she tells him, you're a wonderful man, and I hope you find someone amazing, all this type of stuff. And he says, so you've already chosen Sam? And she's like, what? What are you talking about? And he says, I really love you. I really want to be with you. He's like, I don't like that you slept with Sam, but I know that it's my fault because I didn't communicate with you. I didn't, you thought we were over. He's like, but I can get past it. I want to give you your hopes and dreams. Like, all this shit. She's floored. And then she was like, is this you playing me? Like, is this you trying to the one-up game you guys like to do with each other? Is that what this is about? He's like, no, this has nothing to do with that. I love you and I want to be with you. But I'll give you time to make a decision. He left out. So she goes on the porch. She's sipping on her tea. And normally it's a calming thing, but not today. Sure enough, Sam pulls in. Black eye starting to turn purple. He tells her it's not as bad as it looks. He sees her face and how concerned she is. And he tells her, you should be with Seth. He's a good guy. That's what you deserve. And she unleashes on him. She's like, so you're just going to give him this round. So this was just a game for you. He says, no, 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 no. He's like, I want you so bad. He's like, I'm sitting next to you right now. It's hurting me not to touch you. And he tells her, you're like, I'm crazy about you. He's like, I know I have a reputation for loving and leaving him. I know that. But that is not how it is with you. He's like, I want a future with you. And he's like, I've felt like this ever since that night in the restroom at the charity gala. And she was just floored. And he says, I know I should be the bigger man and tell you that I'll walk away. He said, but I'm not capable of walking away from you. I just can't do it. And he says, choose me. Please don't take too long. And he leaves. She gets together with her girls. They're drinking, Annie and Court, but she's drinking water. She's trying to stay clear headed. Basically, Annie is Team Sam. She thinks passion, fire, that's worth exploring, even if it's going to be short lived. Court is team Seth. She thinks he's the better option. He seems more relationship type, more stable. He reeks of long term, you know? So that's the battlegrounds, and she still doesn't know what the hell she's going to do. That night, she initially had chosen Seth. Then she thought they would have, this beautiful family together. That was going to be the choice. Then she started thinking about Sam and how when she came around, he would have different women and how he would be fucking them. And the thought of that made her physically ill. She's like, I can't do this. So then she goes, then it'll be Sam. But then it's like, but then I can't watch old boy Seth be with someone else. She's like, this is just too much. She's like, either way, it's going to be a problem. So she called Annie. She asked for a week off. She's like, she's going to do some soul searching. And Annie, of course, was like, no problem. Take what you need. Have at it. So she goes and picks up her new cell phone. She messages the guys and lets them know that she's going to be out of town for a week. And when she comes back, she will have made a decision. And that's what she's going to do. So we'll see if this gives her clarity. We'll see. I have my opinions. I'm going to tell you guys that later on what I feel like would be the best thing to do. But we'll see what she comes to. She went about 30 minutes north of Harbor Shores to a motel that was on the harbor. And it was a plain place, nothing crazy, but it was clean. And so the owner of the hotel, Marta, she's an older woman. They were talking. Marta loved to talk about her grandkids. And then one day she asked her, "What are you running from?" And she at first wanted to say, "I'm not running from anything," but then she said, "I'm running from a choice between two men." Marta told her a story about when she was younger. She had a dude named um, Danny and Hal. And she says, "Well, how did you come to the decision?" She said, "I didn't." She said, "I couldn't decide. I waited him out, and Hal was the one standing. And that's who I married." She said, "But Hal was a good man. He was worth choosing. I should have just chosen him. Um, but I didn't know how to handle it." I'm not mad at this method. You know what I mean? Because if I can't decide it, like, then one of you or somebody's gonna get sick of it, or it could be both, and they'll go away. That could work because again, she feels like whichever way she chooses, it's a lose, it's a loss, you know. So she decides she's gonna make a decision. She did ask her, whatever happened to Danny, and she says, "Oh, he got married not too long after." She says, "Well, what about now?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know. I should probably." She's like, "Look him up. His wife could have passed. He could be divorced. Anything." And so she hopes that when Marta gets in contact, maybe Danny will be available. Maybe she will get that second chance with him because she clearly was crazy about him too. So yeah, this is it's difficult and it's messy. It's a lot. The week is up. Marta, of course, was like, "Let me know what you decide." And after all the back and forth, she realizes this isn't fair, and she feels like they're great people. They don't deserve this. So she's gonna choose not to be with either one of them. She sends them a text, each one individually, that says, "I can't see you anymore." Both of them respond. Seth says, "So you've made your decision. Can we talk about it?" Sam responds, "I don't accept this. I'm coming over." So she knew it was kind of cowardly to try and send a text message to do this, but clearly that's not going to work because they're coming to see her. The first one to arrive is Seth. He comes with a bouquet of daisies and wildflowers. Beautiful. She went and put them in some water. She came back out. He says, "So you chose Sam?" She says, "No, I've chosen neither of you. I've made too much of a mess of everything." And Seth is like, "I thought we were really falling in love with each other." She's like, "I know." She says, "But I can't do this. It is not fair to either one of you. And it's not going to work for me. So then Sam pulls up. Sam's got a bunch of roses, red roses. She goes and put those up. She comes out. He says, so you've chosen Seth? And she says, no, I'm not choosing anyone. So Sam got pissed. He's like, that's not fair. We both care about you. You need to make a decision. And whoever you choose, the other one will look out. They will look, we'll lick our wounds and we'll go away for a while and we'll get ourselves together. But it's not fair for both of us to care about you the way that we do, and then neither one of us gets you. And so sadly they leave. She goes inside, looks at both of the beautiful flower arrangements that are both really great representations of each one of the guys, and she just sobs. She goes into work the next day. She almost got hit by a damn car because she wasn't paying attention. Poor girl. Annie came out and got it, was like, you can't lose your life over a boy, or in this case, two boys. Annie told her a story about a guy. She was with this one guy named Adam. He was the high school, football captain, great dude. But she got a hold of a guy named JD, who was a rebel bad boy, and he used to fuck her crazy. And she kept trying to make him love her. Okay? Eventually, she winds up opening his door, and he was getting hair from another girl, and the girl never stopped sucking him off, and he just looked at Annie and smiled, you know. But her reason for wanting her to be with Sam is because she doesn't regret that passion. She doesn't regret the experience. And so, in her case, she lost both of them. But, the JD guy didn't give a damn about her, but it still bothers her. And she even, as she was talking about it, she saw a tear in Annie's eye, and she'd never seen Annie cry before. So the next week or so, she just kind of goes to work, puts her best face forward, but she's in a funk. One day, Annie and Court come to her. No one else is in the store, and they're like, we got to get you out of this funk. So they were going to do pizza and martinis at Annie's place. And Court was like, that sounds great. I'm going to try and get the night off. Then all of a sudden, Abby starts feeling sweat above her lip. And she starts feeling real nauseous. Throws up in the trash. They're looking at her. Could you be pregnant? She's like, no, remember, I can't get pregnant. And they say, no. She's like, no, I really can't. She's like, Larry got Trudy pregnant. They said unless Trudy cheated on him. She'd never considered that. And I'm just kind of like, girl, you had an orgasm, which lets you know your body wasn't broken. You never went and took a test that said there was something wrong. You didn't know. You don't know for a fact. So she's like, well, I don't even know if I'm, pregnant yet, or anything. So let me not trip. Plus, she was out there fucking them both raw. They said they were clean. She said she was clean, but still. So she goes and takes a test. Gets one from the pharmacy and takes it. Sure enough, she is fucking pregnant. So here's the issue. They're identical fucking twins. Their DNA is the same, right? If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But I think the DNA will be the same. So how the hell is she going to be able to tell? So that's how it ends. So the next book in the series is called Making Choices. And that should be a wild ride. What did you all think of this? I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, I loved it. But I would have I like how she came to the conclusion of, I can't choose between the two of you. I can't. I'm not going to act like I can. I can't. And it was an honest decision because it was a fucked up situation that I do wish she would have waited. Even though, again, how long would you wait? It's still going to look crazy when you've been with his brother. You know what I mean? That's still crazy in real life. That's still wild. But being that we're in this little place of fiction, we'll give a somewhat fiction answer. So I did like the idea of, I can't choose between the two of you. You all go on and you all be happy, but I can't get involved in between the two of you. Because the truth is, once someone's going to be hurt and it's going to affect her, and the other person is gonna feel some type of way whenever they're around because you were intimate with that person. And this doesn't appear to be just sex. There's like emotions involved in this shit, which makes it even more so. So I kind of like Sam. I'm just being honest, okay? Because what Seth did irks the shit out of me. Him telling her take care and then ghosting her was crazy to me. And I get needing to process stuff, but you tell people that because the way he did it really gave off, yeah, I don't feel what you feeling, this too much, I'm out. So for me, he may seem like the great guy, but I feel like when you have people like Sam that are whores, it's when they're ready to do right, they'll do it. It's just they haven't met the person yet. It's not an factor of if it's a good woman or not that they've been with. It's about that person that's gonna pull that out of them of this is who I want and that's it. And she seems to be the person for Sam. So I'm rooting for Sam because he genuinely was attracted to her, genuinely wanted her, and they have something that's electric. So I'm rooting for Sam. So, who are you guys rooting for? Let me know. Drop down in the comments. Let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the link will be available down in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.